I'm pausing the recording.
What is today? We'll call the July 5th meeting of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee to order. A quick roll call of members. Ed Kunkel.
Present.
Carolina Mejia from County Commission. Joe Downing. Lisa Parsley. Joan Cappy. Elaine Clam. Kirsten Presley. Greg Schoenbachler. Richard Moon. I saw Richard.
Here.
Yes, there he is. And Delroy Cox.
Here.
And Chad Sutter.
I'm
Is
here.
here. Yeah, thanks, Chad. And David Nightingale. I saw
Here.
David. There he is. Laura Busby in Hot, Ohio. And Jeff, do you
Yeah,
want
I'm
to take us? Yeah, you want to take us through staff?
First, we have a call. We have a caller at the 360-561-047.
Yeah, that's me, Greg Schoenbacher. Sorry about that,
Oh,
guys.
Greg.
Oh, it's Greg. Okay.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, everybody. I can't seem to log in. It just takes me to this register page, and then it does nothing, and it gives me no other options. So I'm just calling in today, I guess, unless there's a solution I don't know about.
Yeah, typically, if you
So
hit
I'm
that,
fine on the phone either way.
at the register piece, if you hit the link, it'll then send you an email that has the direct link.
Oh, okay. I've never. I didn't go back and check my email, so I'll do that and hang up when I get it connected.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank
All
you.
right. So as far
Yep.
as
Thanks, everybody.
staff goes, in the room, we have Amanda Romero, of course.
Hi, good morning.
We have Ayla Turnquist.
Good morning.
We have Sherry. What's your last name again? I'm sorry.
It's Sherry Parsons.
There we go. Sherry, she's
Hello.
here with us. So I would like to introduce her. She will be taking over soon, doing the minutes and attending these meetings regularly. So we welcome her. Let me see, looking down there. Who else do we have? Oh, we have Danielle Wensky.
Good morning.
I see Rob Pudner
Morning.
and Susan Isham. There she is. I think that is staff. And then as far as guests, I see Gary Franks
Yep, Gary Frank, City of Olympia, Waste Resources.
and let's see, we have Tracy Bills, HDR,
Good morning.
Tom Rupert.
Good morning.
Scroll, the names keep bouncing around on me, so I gotta roll down here again. I think, did I miss anybody? I think that's it.
I think you got him, Jeff.
All right.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to look at today's agenda, and do I hear a motion for approval?
Move to
move we
approve the
approve the
agenda
agenda.
as presented.
We have a motion to approve the agenda from Ed Kunkel and a second from Delroy Cox. All those in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. We have an agenda. Have folks had a chance to look at the minutes from our June meeting?
Yeah, I move to accept the minutes as written.
Thank you, David.
Second.
Is there a second? Was that Delroy?
Second. That was Ed.
That was
Second.
Ed. Thank you, Ed. All those in favor of approving the minutes from June 7th, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. The minutes have been approved. Do we have any public comments today? Not that I'm aware of, but it doesn't look like it. Moving on to old business, anything from previous meetings? Looks like Greg was able to get in, that's good. And moving on to new business, The first item on our agenda is the legislative post-session update with Travis.
Well, good morning all. It's really nice to be back. I really have enjoyed becoming sort of this de facto unofficial member of your SWAC. I feel like I've presented here more than any other SWAC. So thank you again for having me back. I'm gonna just sort of ramble here for a second while I get my screen shared, but we are coming off last week having had a really great WAC swim meeting. So the Washington Association of County Solid Waste Managers met in Tacoma on Tuesday and Wednesday of last week. Jeff was there as well as part of that group. And we, ran through a pretty good agenda, including a summary of some of the bills that we'll be presenting to you this morning. Meeting with our legislative steering committee at the Washington State Association of Counties. So the group of county legislators that set legislative priorities for our counties association. And we also met with Representative Beth Dolio, the chair of the Environment and Energy Committee, for some really good conversations, and also conversations with a lot of our partners, Ecology, the Public Works Board, and then just lots of time together to network and continue to just create a statewide knowledge base for solid waste issues amongst county solid waste managers. So nice, lovely dinner at the old spaghetti factory in Tacoma. And yeah, Jeff, anything you wanted to add? And I'll share my screen while if there's anything you wanted to share about any of the big outcomes from last week for Thurston County that you think would be worth sharing.
Yeah, it was as usual, it's a good meeting. I really enjoyed the opportunity to meet with my cohorts from all the various counties around the state. You definitely learned that, besides having a lot of similar experiences and issues, that the differences, particularly from the east-west side, the mountains, how various policies affect them differently. For example, the organics bill that was recently passed and how that's going to be implemented. I mean, Thurston County is full inclusion in the enactment of that rule, whereas a good deal of the rest of the state is excluded from the commercial collection piece of organics. So it's, again, interesting perspectives, and as I said, always a good time. And Travis does a good job of keeping us organized, somewhat.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we even reconnected Jeff with a former coworker, staff member from Marion County as well. So I don't know how long ago. So
Yeah.
it was a good experience, and I think we've accomplished quite a bit with this group. So just to confirm, can folks there see the first slide, the 2023 solid waste bills slide on your screen up there? Okay, excellent. I'm going to be going through, there were 4 solid waste related bills that passed this year. So I'm going to be providing just a high level summary and trying to incorporate where counties will fit into some of these bills as well. But I'll stop at the end of each slide just to give folks time for questions. And I'll be taking notes if there's anything that I need to follow up on as far as information or questions that you all have. But so feel free to ask questions for each slide. So we'll get started on the battery EPR bill. And this is the most word dense slide. So I apologize in advance. And I shared this with Amanda, so you will be able to have this for your notes if you want to refer back. But the Battery Extended Producer Responsibility Program will, in a nutshell, require the producers or manufacturers of batteries to participate in a stewardship plan in order to sell batteries in the state of Washington. And what that looks like is that every producer of a battery must pay into an organization that will be established that will address a couple of things. It will fund the collection, management, outreach, and administration of a battery recycling program. It will also be required to establish a certain number of sites around the state to ensure that for folks that need to dispose of batteries, and I'll talk about the kind of batteries here in a moment, but that there are collection sites throughout the state based on convenience, not solely based upon population or solely based upon the greatest return on investment. And I think right now there's a requirement that there's at least one collection site per county. And that can be at a site that a county currently collects batteries, or a county could opt out and they would go to other collection sites, retailers, et cetera. And it also establishes recycling targets that producers or this stewardship organization must meet. So for rechargeable batteries, they need to capture and recycle 60% of batteries sold within the state, and 70% of primary batteries, which is what they call non-rechargeable batteries. So those are the recycling targets that these organizations must hit. So it'll come through in a couple of phases. One, January 1st of 2027. There will be requirements in place for the sale of portable batteries. And these are just, they break them down by quite a few confusing categories, but really it's all chemistries of batteries that are either rechargeable under 11 pounds or non-rechargeable under 4.4 pounds. So think about your button batteries, the batteries in your remote control. These are going to be the most common types of batteries that, battery collection programs see. These are likely the ones that are most likely thrown away in your home or sit in a drawer because you don't know where they're supposed to go or how to handle them. So,
Could I ask a question, or we want to wait till the end for questions?
What do you think,
go ahead.
Travis?
Why don't you jump in here? We'll wait till the rest, but there's a lot of information on this slide. So go ahead and jump in. Was that Ed?
Yes.
Go for
So as far as the stewardship plan, do we know what the cost of that plan is going to be? Because, at the end of the day, it should be called a consumer cost plan. But I'm just curious, what is that going to look like to the average consumer as far as the markup to accommodate this stewardship plan? Do we have any idea at all?
No, I think if I understand what you're asking, it's what is the cost? Ultimately, the cost is going to be borne by the customer. Is what your
Correct.
question.
It'd be
Do we
nice
have an idea of what that cost will look like? I have not seen an economic breakdown of that. This would be the 10th or 11th bill like this in the country. And we've run into this with other EPR programs, is that what we're seeing is that the cost of these programs are sort of the manufacturers of things like batteries, packaging, et cetera, have been seeing the writing on a wall for a while, and that a lot of the costs are already in these materials. So, for example, the EPR bill, we did some studies. A couple of states across the nation have done what they call basket of goods studies to look at the increase of costs across the US and in Canada. Not that Canada is always the best benchmark for the United States, but the companies are already including these costs in the materials because they are expecting these programs to take place. That being said, that is all the studies that we have seen and what we have heard. I do not know what the ultimate cost impact is going to be on these products at the register. So,
okay, thank you.
So all chemistries, just a couple of examples: lithium ion, nickel metal hydride, those types of batteries will be part of the program. These are the portable batteries. In January 1st of 2029, we will see the rollout of medium format batteries. So these are sort of above 11 pounds, less than 25 pounds. And some examples of this are, large electric lawn equipment, golf carts, forklifts, anything that, some of the smaller vehicles. I think some of the smaller motorcycle batteries would fall into this category as well, if they're all electric batteries. And then finally, on November 30th of 2023, the Department of Ecology is required to make recommendations on the handling of electronic vehicle batteries and other large format batteries. So these would be, batteries that they're manufacturing for, obviously, electric vehicles, but also batteries that are being developed for storing energy at homes, and really just identifying what all of those batteries might be and how to handle them with the increase of electric vehicles and the greater electrification of homes. So from a county's perspective, as I mentioned up top, there's some funding requirements. If a county chooses to opt in, if Thurston County continues to retain any battery collection programs that it has, they will establish an agreement with the stewardship organization, and any cost incurred by Thurston County or any county supporting this program, from collection to processing, handling, transportation, et cetera, would be fully reimbursed by the stewardship organization. But also counties would have the opportunity to say, all right, we're no longer going to bear the burden of this electronic or this batteries program. We're just going to hand that requirement off to the stewardship organization, and the organization would have to go develop sites equally as convenient, or if not more convenient, for drop off than what currently exists. So there's an option here for counties, but ultimately it should pull some of the financial burden and risk away from counties related to batteries. So any other questions on battery EPR before I jump on to the next one? All right, I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm going to jump through, but interrupt me if you need. All right, so the next bill is a compostable products bill. This is more of an advisory recommendation / study bill. It requires the Department of Ecology to convene a stakeholder advisory committee made of public and private members, including county representatives from small and large, urban and rural counties. And likely what will happen is that WAC-SWIM, as the representative of all of the counties in Washington, will likely work together to convene a group to represent all of the counties, but individual counties are going to be able to participate in this advisory committee as well. And there will be a third-party facilitator leading meetings over about a year for this advisory committee. The outcomes of the advisory committee are to recommend compostable product management standards. So the goal here is we have composting, we have food waste reduction goals, we have organics diversion goals, and we have compost procurement goals. So part of that organics bill that passed last year was that counties have to purchase they have to consider purchasing compost as part of any public works or any projects that they are planning. In order to ensure that compost that we are diverting all of that food waste to, and that counties and other places are required to purchase, we need to make sure that it's clean. And in many places, compostable products like straws, spoons, cups, bags, etc., don't break down at the same rate that our food waste or our yard waste does here in Washington. I think, depending upon the facility, sometimes it's as short as a 30-day turnaround. And sometimes it takes for the organic material to become compost in some of our facilities in the state. Compostable products that are run through that system still come out the other end looking largely like they did when they went in. So we want to make sure that we're putting out compostable material that is not full of litter. So the goal there is to how can we manage compostable products in Washington to keep our compost clean. They're also expected to address consumer confusion. We do have truth in labeling regulations that passed in Washington around compostable and that other word there. What's the other word I'm looking for? Compostable and, there's another word, sorry. Other word for breaking down slowly over time. I apologize. Pardon?
Biodegradable.
There you go. Thank you. Sorry, I'm still a little fried after last week and yesterday. So too much time in the sun yesterday. So anyway, so kind of building on some of those labeling requirements in Washington, making sure that it's very clear that when you are handling a spoon or a straw from a coffee shop or a plastic bag from wherever, that you know where it needs to go. And then considering that breakdown time, and the committee is required to report to the legislator with its recommendations by September 15th, 2024. So they have 1 year to develop standards to recommend to the legislature. Any questions about the compostable products bill?
I just like to say that you hit the really prime topics and the real limiting factors of organics recycling. Keeping it clean is the single biggest challenge. And then also, I really appreciate you recognizing that these compostable servicewares largely don't fit within the parameters of commercial composting timelines and processes. So I mean, you hit the real important points for a processor. So that's great. Thank you.
Well, good, glad to hit that. And I know that processors are definitely, I think, have quite a bit of room on the advisory committee as well. But having been in Pierce County and having watched them run plastic bags through and other materials through, or heading out to dirt huggers and seeing how much plastic that they need to screen out, whether it's compostable or non-compostable due to consumer confusion or lack of labeling. There's a lot there to keep it clean, and compost on the side of the road. There was a project, I think it was the interchange of in Tacoma, where WashDOT laid down compost, and it was full enough of, it had enough plastic materials in it that it was considered litter, and it all had to go be cleaned back up, and then new material had to be laid down. So yeah, that contamination is a big piece of making something that people actually want to use. So. There was a plastic reduction bill, and this focused on three things. One, the State Building Code Council is required by July 1st, 2026 to develop requirements that any building that requires a drinking fountain also has water bottle refill stations, either a drinking fountain refill station combo or an equal number throughout the facility. So this would be for schools or other public buildings or any other place where drinking fountains would be required. So the goal here is just to reduce plastic use for water bottles. There's also a single-use toiletries in hotels ban that's going to be going into effect. So a hotel or lodging establishment with 50 units or more will have to move to those bulk toiletry or machines on the wall. I don't know if you've been in a hotel where they have like the soap, the shampoo, the conditioner, all that stuff sort of mounted on the wall in the shower, and eliminates the single-use toiletries by January 1st of 2027. And then facilities with fewer than 50 units will be required to omit or will be prohibited from using single-use toiletries after January 1, 2028. So this includes your Airbnbs, your smaller hotels, boutique hotels, etc. Just like with the straws that were banned a couple of years ago, they're still available, especially for folks that might need those things, but they are only available upon request. They cannot be just put out in the restrooms or in the hotel rooms. So plan on packing your own backup stuff just in case, I think. So I've also been seeing, we saw one at the hotel here, I'm seeing more and more pharmacy vending machines. I don't know if Jeff, you had to use it, but I definitely had to get some Tums at one point, and it's a gigantic vending machine that is like a whole pharmacy inside of it of overpriced goods, but more usage than just a single use. So I think we'll expect to see more of those kinds of things. The last one, for those of you that spend a lot of time on the water or have a houseboat, I don't know, but foam-filled floating structures. Basically, floating walkways, floating docks, anything in a marine area that is foam that is encased in plastic are by January 1, 2024, unless the foam inside is encased in concrete, some type of metal or other type of classification that is not going to allow it to be damaged and allow pieces of the internal foam to break off and become marine pollution. After January 1st, 2024, those will no longer be allowed. So this is, these types of materials, they get damaged, the foam inside then starts to break down, gets loose, and becomes marine plastic. For those of you with houseboats or future houseboat dreams, houseboats are exempt from this requirement, but I don't.
Can I have a question on that?
Yes.
Okay. So the way fiberglass boats are manufactured, once the shells are complete and they're putting in the floor, fiberglass boats, they'll typically foam inside the hull. you know, just to give it some added buoyancy for safety reasons. Is that practice going to be affected by this change?
I'm gonna double check and get back to you via Amanda or Jeff, Ed, on that one. My understanding is this is only for overwater structures. So this does not relate to boats or other vehicles. It's mostly the infrastructure around marinas or other areas. So my understanding is that it doesn't include boats, but I will double check on that and get back to you, so.
It could feasibly be a hazard if, you know, if you're traveling on the water and for some reason your hull is damaged, it could, you know, it could be a cause for pollution. If you could have the foam material inside the hole that seeps into the water, that is possible.
Lost Ed's audio.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Did you say something, Richard?
I just didn't hear what Ed was saying. He's lost his audio for a while.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay, yeah. So that was my question, if that applies to the way boats are manufactured, if we're gonna have to use some other source to help with added buoyancy during manufacturing.
Yeah, I will look into that. I know that I think it's just the amount of use and the wear and tear on these tend to get they tend to break down pretty quickly from what I understand, but I'll get back to you on that one, Ed.
Okay, thanks.
And then is there a question?
There's not a question, but just before you go on, Travis, David put a note in chat that he can share some information on the cost of battery EPR programs that will address some of Ed's question.
Oh, that would be very great, David. If you would be willing to share that, I have my email at the end, or if you want to talk really quickly, sorry, not really quickly. If you would like to speak to that now, that would.
I could do it now. I could share my screen or wait till you're done at the end, whichever you'd like. I'm ready to show the results. I mean, I did a study a couple years ago on this.
Oh, great. I have this final slide, and then I will hand it back.
Okay, go ahead.
To determine how you guys want to do this part. So.
Perfect, thanks.
The final bill that passed is a wind turbines blade study bill with the amount of turbines going up in the states to meet our state's clean energy demands. The wind turbine blades typically are scheduled to last anywhere from 20 to 30 years, but they're getting more efficient, they're getting bigger, and they, in some cases, might be being replaced faster than their lifespan, but especially as we're sort of getting to that 20-year lifespan for some of the blades that were initially installed, we're running into having to cut them into pieces and landfill them, and they take up a significant amount of room in a landfill. They do not compact. They do not break down over time, given their fiberglass, metal, wood combined construction. And so there's quite a few programs, a couple of landfills in the state have wind turbine blades in them. And also, I know at least in Walla Walla County and a couple of the eastern counties, they have blades that are sitting, waiting to be transported to California to be potentially recycled, or waiting to be able to cut them into smaller pieces to make them easier to transport, but cutting them into smaller pieces comes with air quality requirements as well. So what this bill is intended to do is allow WSU Extension Energy Program to research the potential for reuse or recycling of wind turbine blades and what the processing and what the outcomes would look like. Also identifying any incentives to site facilities in the state, private companies that can process wind turbine blades in the state to reduce the need to transport these very, very large blades, or reduce the need to potentially have to cut them up into more transportable pieces. They're also going to be looking into potential requirements around recycling of wind turbine blades, so requiring the recycling of these, as well as any potential recycled content requirements. Can we use old turbine blades or old materials and build new blades out of recycled content? And also looking at the feasibility of a state EPR program. And WSU is expected or will have to have this study to the legislature by December 1st of this year. So not a ton of time, but I assume that means that we're looking at some wind turbine blade legislation based on that report and that study in 2024. So lots there with wind turbines and the frequency at which they're being installed in their lifespan. So any questions on wind turbine blades?
I don't see any hands, Travis.
All right. That was, oh, sorry, this is supposed to be a fortune cookie also. I realize now it doesn't look like this. It was like, what is our future? So now that I'm seeing it much larger, it's not quite a fortune cookie, but that's what it was supposed to be. But I just wanted to chat about some future bills that we know are coming or expect to come up in 2024. So Representative Dolio at our meeting last week did share that they're looking at more appliances, an EPR program for appliances containing greenhouse gases. So whether they're coolant appliances or even appliances that are insulated with foam that often also contain greenhouse gases within the foam. Looking at working with Waxwim and counties to develop an EPR program for appliances, expanding lights to cover more than mercury bulbs, which both of these came up during this most recent session, but did not move past their committee of origin. And the WRAP Act, so the EPR program for packaging and paper products, we expect to come back, potentially broken down into more bills that are simple rather than one very, very large complicated bill. We did get a chance to hear from Oregon's bottle bill folks to understand a little bit more about what was proposed related to a beverage container deposit program in Washington, to understand more about that in case that comes up. And Representative Liz Berry and Representative Dolio have both reached out to work with our group more on what potential EPR success we can support. It's still sort of a mystery. We don't know what it will entail, but we're expecting more or expansion of the organics collection program. We're still playing catch up on trying to figure out what the first round meant. And we had good conversation last week about let's spend some time cleaning up and helping counties get caught up on what the first round did before we look at future legislation to expand it. But we expect to see some things around organics collection this time. And then we hope to accomplish, we've been really yelling loudly about funding and funding all of the legislation plus meeting our current infrastructure needs. So looking at funding solid waste programs in a more sustainable fashion versus funding that is based upon the sale of fossil fuels or based on the amount of garbage going into our landfills. Both of those we are looking to reduce, which would in turn reduce our funding and our ability to accomplish everything. So that's what we're expecting in the future and what we will be working on between now and January. And then that is my final slide. So any other questions before I hand it over to Amanda if you wanted David to share some of those slides around the battery cost.
Any questions for Travis before we let David share his slide? I don't see any hands.
Great.
Thank you, Travis. That was really informative. I appreciate it. And David, do you have that information up handy?
Yeah.
Very good.
Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So this battery EPR legislation is really just an expansion of the existing call to recycle. They're most likely going to be the entity that comes forward and actually does the program and writes the plan. But here's the fees that they charge. This is as of about 2 years ago when I wrote this article, but you can see that this is a dollars per 100 grams. So if you think about 500 grams is a little more than a pound. So if you multiply these numbers by 5, that's about how many dollars per pound that's being in charge to the manufacturers of batteries to manage these different chemistries of batteries. here are all the normal rechargeable batteries, the schedule that is charged by Calder Recycle to their manufacturers. If you multiply these by 5, it's going to be, less than a penny to 6 cents, 7 cents a pound for the cost that industry is experiencing here. And then the only additional thing, and again, these are a couple years old, but this program has literally been out there for decades. And so there's a national program, actually international, covers Canada and United States. So these are pretty larger economy of scales because they've been operating a long time. And then Vermont was the first state to require the primary batteries to be included. And this is a schedule, again, that dollars per 100 grams for alkalins and primary lithiums, which are the primary batteries, non-rechargeable. So now that's in our law as well. So anyway, this will give you a sense. Probably it's not, less than a penny to maybe 7, 8 cents a pound for the batteries. So not a huge surcharge to manage this stuff correctly. And I think the economy of scales kind of speak for themselves. And unless there's any questions, I will stop sharing.
Is this available online, David?
Yeah, this is an article I wrote January of 2021 for a trade journal. I can send y'all a link to that. How would you like me to do that? How about if I put it in the chat, a link to this article?
Good idea. No, thank
Okay.
you for that information, David.
Sure.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
that'd be great.
Yeah, you're welcome, Ed.
Yes,
And this
thank
really
you.
does kind of help put that in perspective. Thank you for that, David.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Travis or David before we move on to Susan? I don't see any hands. And so Susan is going to update us on the capital facilities plan. Susan.
Okay, Jeff and I are going to tag team this. So, all right. And hello from hot and smoky Shelton. So
Yeah.
it's an indoorsy day despite the nice weather. Okay, so this first slide obviously shows all of the projects we have going on right now and the timelines. So we'll be talking about some of those. Yeah, we'll just go to the next one. Thanks, Amanda. All right, Jeff, do you want to do this one?
Sure, I can take this one. So I know we've been talking about the SCADA system replacement for quite some time now, so you guys should be definitely familiar with it. We are actually down, I think we have one punch list item remaining that, yeah, so we're so close to the finish line here. So once that, it's actually a programming piece that once that's finally resolved, we will be in project closeout and finishing up. So really excited about that. That should be finishing up here shortly. So hooray. And then likewise, obviously, again, another one we've been talking about for some time, the flare system update. We are currently just working through a demonstration that's performed just to prove that it's working correctly. That should, I believe, finish in about a week and a half or so, and then and so far all indications are it's operating well. And then basically that's what will be left after that, besides a few other punch list items, are they will do their, now that we know that, that the new flares are working correctly, they will do the demolition of the old huge flares that were that are out there at the facility. So the demolition of that will happen once everything else has been signed off. We didn't want to do that until we knew that 100% that everything was working well enough that before we took the other ones out of commission. So that should be wrapping up here within the next month or so. Any questions on either of those two? I know we've been talking about these for a long time, so because they're long-term projects.
This isn't a question, but man, it's great to be seeing these wrapping up now.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, this is awesome.
All right, and pumps. We've been talking about pumps for quite a while as well. At this point, we have had supply chain delays, as you guys know. We demobed, I think, back in March or April, and our contractor went to work on other things. But the pieces of equipment we need, the pumps and all of the pertinences have started to come in, and the container is full, which I think is a really good sign, right? So they're talking about coming back on site at the end of this month and just rolling through everything. And I'm hoping that that will work. So we are really, the contract ends essentially at the end of this year. So we just really want to still meet that timeline, and let's have to see if we can still do that. We'll keep you posted.
Excellent.
So the technology upgrades, this is about the work and the security cameras. I've been in contact with our IT staff, and he has most of the cameras except for 3. And he's going to start installing those. The 3 areas, there's the dog park and the outbound scale. And there was one other area that these were newer cameras that we were getting in there, just upgrading. And we don't have those yet. So he's going to install what he has and then finish it all up as it comes. It's taken a little while, again, supply chain issues, but yeah.
And I might add before you jump onto that one as well. Additionally, and I don't know if this is covered in here or elsewhere, is we are upgrading our camera systems at both the Rainier and Rochester Dropbox sites as well. So Rainier, I believe, has had most of that installed, and it seems, which is a huge improvement. That one, the cameras that were out there, some weren't working. The technology was old and very grainy. So we're definitely much higher definition coverage for all of these cameras. So we can, much clearer new servers to process that. And Rochester, I believe he's still looking for some of the hardware, hasn't come in yet. And that site's going to require more of a rewiring, some additional labor related to that wasn't required at Rainier. So
yeah,
those are continuing to move forward as well.
You're stealing my thunder. That's okay.
Was that further up?
I think so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. It was a good place to talk about it. So, okay. Do you want to talk about
I'll take this.
Okay.
So for the work master conceptual plan, which is the reconfiguration project, we are working with HDR currently in the pre-design study. We have, what they're doing is, they've gotten together with staff, with Republic employees, with the roads staff as well, basically developing a basis of design document, putting that together that would then be the base or the setup for then going out for getting a contractor to do the actual design or putting together design plans and specifications. So this is really just getting feedback on our needs and getting a conceptual design for how, in particular, how that building would be expanded and how we would provide, for example, one of the key things that we're looking at is the addition of a second compactor in there to provide that redundancy that we would like. So, and how would that actually be accomplished? Tearing out the old there was a picking line in there for recyclables that hasn't worked in a very long time. So taking that out actually is going to provide some space to provide these. But we actually had last week they had a structural engineer, electrical engineers from HDR, and we really did a walkthrough of the whole facility to see how changes could be made. So again, this will help us create that basis for design that HDR is put together for us. So that's in process and should have something here in the next month or two.
Okay, so you can see that the security cameras are on this slide, but Jeff did such a great job with that, I'm not even going to touch on it. So the contract for the new mini break rooms where staff will be able to hang out, the contract was awarded, yay. It took a little bit of time to get the permits. They had another, our permitting group had another layer of federal regulations that were laid on at the beginning of 2023. And so we needed to go through that. But yeah, the permits have been awarded and we're going to have the kickoff meeting for this project. Both of the buildings are going to be done with the same contract. So that's going to happen on the 17th of this month, I think, or the 20th. And then we will get going on that. We're really excited. Hopefully we can knock it out this summer. That is the plan.
And I guess I'll take this one as well. So yeah, we've been working again, if you're familiar with the general concept, I believe that, you know, again, we're looking at the possibility that doesn't make sense to site and open a new South County transfer station versus the potential of upgrading Rainier and Rochester drop-off sites. Just because they're small, very well used and loved, but the capacity there is being strained. Additionally, with the possibility of expanding to a new facility, there's other benefits that would be more more and improved services that we could provide our customers out there, such as providing organics collection, which is, we don't have that availability right now. If you come in with organics at our current sites, that just goes into the garbage. But being able to provide that as a separate item, as well as some additional recycling options, such as recycling of tires and appliances, for example, and maybe some basic household hazardous waste type collection in a new facility, possibly. Additionally, one of the other benefits would be that the en route haulers down there for curbside would be able to utilize that facility for some of their South County routes, which would then take some of the pressure off of the Waste and Recovery Center here for a few less vehicles coming, as well as right now the waste from the drop-off sites comes to the work, then gets reloaded and has to head back down to Centralia. This would provide the opportunity to just have it loaded and go straight to Centralia, since you're already almost 2/3 of the way there anyway. So again, it would reduce some of our traffic at the work, which helps to increase our availability for our customers and the future growth. So HDR is currently working on a siting study. They've using GIS, they pulled up and looked at potential sites that met a number of criteria, size, zoning, etc. And we have a short list at this point in time, and we're wheedling it down to a much shorter list. There's a few other pieces of analysis that need to get done. But then with that shorter list, they'll do a little more investigation on, drafting what would a facility look like here? How would that lay out? And look at some of the other factors, as far as the workability of that site and the suitability of those shortlisted sites. So that should be coming. Also have a report coming out of that here in the next month or two as well. So, and then of course in both of these, both the work reconfiguration piece as well as the South County transfer piece, we'll be sharing information with of course with the board, obviously. And then with this group as well as we move forward. So you'll get to hear more about that here in the near future.
All right, the compactor. We have talked about this a little bit. As you know, the Works compactor has had some issues. So we thought it was in the best interest to replace it and then take the existing one and put it into storage for a little while. So then, as Jeff alluded to, when we do the work reconfiguration, we can have that redundancy of having two compactors. So we are working on getting all of the scoping elements for that so that we get exactly what we want moving forward. And we're going to go out for a bid here, hopefully before the end of the year, and then we can get it ordered. There's a long lead time on this particular piece of equipment, 9 months or so. So we'd like to be able to install it, start installing it in the fall or so like that, but it might take a little bit. So Jeff, did you want to add anything?
I think you pretty much hit it. Yeah, the idea would be, put it out to bid and with a strict set of requirements and that the contractors will have to meet to make sure that it fits what we need and our requirements. But yeah, we're looking to go out with that here and hopefully shortly. And you're correct. You're referring minimum of 6 to maybe 9 months lead time. Kind of depends on who else is buying at the time. But yeah, it will be nice to have that, one, a new compactor in place, but two, having that redundancy again, as I mentioned previously, is just key, because when the compactor's down, while you can still load out, it's definitely it's less efficient, slower, and things tend to back up a little bit when that happens. So it'd be nice to have, so when one's down for maintenance, you still have something that can run, or maybe way out in the future, when our volume is really continuing to increase, you could potentially even run both simultaneously if you had to really move materials. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Are there any questions?
I just
Questions?
maybe comment that thinking about the previous slide with the South County transfer station thing, that just thinking about the surveys that were done, and I think it was organics and HHW were the sort of the top two things people were thinking about. So that's what I will be looking for as far as capacity and the ability to serve those unmet needs down there in that new facility, however it ends up to be.
Agreed. Yeah, those were popular things that people were definitely looking for, certainly.
Any other questions or comments for Susan or Jeff?
We've had some great presentations today. I just had to throw that in there. Wow. Everybody's on their A game today.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's been good, and thank you for that comment. I appreciate that. And it looks like we've been joined by Commissioner Mejia. I didn't catch that when she came in, but glad she could join us. Jeff, did you want to walk us through the two options for updating membership given changes with the Port Commission and the Board of County Commissioners?
I do. So if you recall, I believe it was back in January, we had a discussion about this subject. As you know, during the last election, it was decided, or it was voted that the commissioners districts, which there's currently 3 county commissioner districts here in Thurston County, that's being expanded to 5 with that election for those. So the districts will be broken up. My understanding that they're broken up in a way that the current county commissioners will remain, even though it's being segregated within the district that they currently serve and where they live. But there'd be 2 additionals. So the quandary or the question was related to the county's ordinance related to SWAC membership. So this again, set the stage again. So we currently have a limit in our ordinance of 15 total members on the SWAC. The state, in their rules, only requires a minimum of 9 and up. But our ordinance specifically sets the limit of 15. So we are at that 15. Well, let's go back up a little more. So a couple of years ago, I think it was just before I actually started here, Ecology there was a push to add agriculture because we did not have an agricultural rep on our committee. And so we added one. However, we were at that 15-person limit already based upon our existing criteria. So we allowed an individual to fill both positions. So there's somebody that's actually filling more than one position. So as you know, so Greg Schonbachler is actually fulfilling both the agricultural position as well as the District 1 resident position. So again, back in ordinance, for each county commissioner district, we should have 1 citizen, one resident position. So we have our 3 current resident positions being filled right now. We have Renee, of course, you're in District 3. Greg is District 1, and Richard Moon is District 2 resident. So because the way the ordinance reads now, it says we shall have 1 resident for each commissioner district. That would mean that in this new, once it's expanded, we would have to add 2 more resident positions. So the discussion that we had back in January, again, I believe it was we're trying, there's a concern about adding too many people because we'd have to add one to have a separate ag and then add 2 more to add these residents, would put us up to 18. That gets very cumbersome. I've actually had a SWAC that was bigger than that, and we actually, in Marion County, where I used to work, and it was hard. It was very difficult with that many people. One, tougher to get a quorum because you need a lot more people because it's half plus 1 to get a quorum. And 2 is again, it was just very cumbersome and unwieldy. So that discussion again back in January the thought was, well, how about we put the cap at 16 so we have a separate ag rep, and then just have the 3 resident positions just be at large. In other words, but it doesn't have to be from a specific districts. So what you'll see in the 2 that that was one theory, one possibility. We provided a couple of
So
options.
Jeff, do you need a second to get rid of Greg Schoenbacher? Because I'll second that.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you can feel the love here. You should know.
Yeah, that was
So, and so I actually talked to Greg about this earlier in the year after we had that discussion and say, are you comfortable with, if you had the preference, because he feels both, an ag and a resident. I mean, if you were to just choose one, and I think if I recall, Greg, you prefer to be the ag rep if you had to choose one of the 2, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of indifferent, but yeah, I mean, ags is my wheelhouse too, so that's fine.
And that is a harder position typically to fill. And because I know recruiting for advisory council positions sometimes can be very challenging. Specifically certain represented positions. And I've had that issue before previously in other advisory councils I've dealt with. So there's quite a 2 different possibilities. So the first one is kick up from 15 to 16 and have the 3 resident positions be at large. However, with the caveat that they all have to be in separate districts. So you can have 2 at-larges from District 1, say. So what we don't want to have is those 3 being concentrated in one specific area. So that's the first of the 2 options. And then we want to put out another one just so you have some choices. Another potential option would be, again, leave it at 15. Separate out the agricultural piece, but then reduce the citizen reps from 3 to 2, again, having to be from different districts. But then we would maintain that number of 15. And probably the only substantive difference one is, one less representation from the general public. But you also, in that scenario, you only have 15, you only need 8 for a quorum in that scenario, assuming all the positions are filled. Where you would need 9 to reach a quorum if you were up to 16. So, that's probably the only substantive difference. I mean, but you do have a little less citizen representation, which, so that's definitely a trade-off there. So I wanted those are the 2 options that we have laid in front of you. So I wanted to just kind of lay that out. Hopefully that was somewhat clear, but I wanted to have you guys discuss, because ultimately to make this change, this will have to go to the board and a public hearing and everything. But I wanted to kind of get the feel for the committee and then ultimately get a recommendation on where you guys would feel we should move forward with. So with that, I will leave it open to the committee to discuss.
okay. Thanks, Jeff. Thoughts from committee members? Yes, Ed.
So I think the idea of the members at large, that to me, that makes the most sense. There's not going to be a perfect way that we skin this cat, so to speak. It is what it is. We have more representation, but it would be cumbersome to build upon that with, 2 additional, it would end up being 2 additional board members. It could be problemsome for a quorum at times. But I do like the idea of having our resident members at large and spaced out so that they're not all encompassing one particular district. But that's my thought. I think we're doing the right thing here, having the conversation. I think we'll resolve it.
And Delroy, did I see your hand up?
Yes, I was wondering what has this been discussed with the commissioners? Do they have are they concerned about having a representative in each district or have they given any input?
Well, go ahead and give you some feedback on that. We had at our State of the Solid Waste System briefing that we had back in May with the board. I brought this up to put this on now, make sure it was on their radar. And we had a very brief discussion about it. Actually, the comment about making sure that they were just from, I think I heard generally that, interest in, okay, maybe not adding additional people, but making sure that they all came from separate districts. Actually is something that was specifically suggested by one of the commissioners. So, as far as, if they're going to be at large, that as long as we don't double up and that they make sure that they represent those. So it's been very brief, nothing of any extent as far as discussion, but so it's on there, it should be on their radar, but that's about it so far.
Okay, great.
Yeah, do you guys know what any of the other county boards are doing, advisory boards and so forth? Because there's a ton of them. And I'm sure this is the common problem with all of them, right? And has there been any discussion about this or foresight with this when we voted that in to have 5 commissioners and now 5 different districts, and then potentially people serving on these boards with one district that the district's going to change for them? You might live in one, and then after this change, you might live in 2 or whatever,
Yeah, as far as I do know, there's somebody in the board, I can't remember who it is now, in the board's office that was out looking to see, who is this going to affect? Because different advisory groups have different membership criteria. So I know there's at least a handful where this will have an impact, where there's something specific to commissioner districts, and we're one of them. I don't know what the other ones are, but I do know that it does affect a few others. So, and you're right. I mean, it's our three current resident ones likely will be in. I mean, I don't know. There's a possibility, though highly unlikely, that you might, that you 3 might also might be in the similar district, depending how they separate it out. But it's not too likely. I don't know if I answered all of your question there, Greg, if I did or not.
Laura, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that this is a good problem to have. Maybe that doesn't help, but many counties that I work with struggle to get their 9 representatives positions filled. So just a different perspective for you. And I think that does address one of those questions about how is it handled elsewhere. I haven't, in my short duration in my position, I haven't experienced this side of this problem. It's usually how do we get people to engage? So
yeah, recruitment has been an ongoing issue, and in fact, if I remember correctly, Greg is filling 2 roles because we simply couldn't find someone to fill that ag role, and he was already with us and could represent them and graciously step forward, but it's challenging. Ed.
So okay, and I neglected to think about port commissioner as well as the Board of County Commissioner in my last comment. So would it be advisable to offer a couple of different options for SWAC and present that to both the port commissioners and the county commissioners and give them a couple of options? This is what the SWAC has come up with in lieu of the change for new elected representatives. What say you, and get feedback from them individually, and then make a judgment call from there.
So Jeff, you probably have an answer to this, but historically we've had just 1 representative from the port, And maybe that would change now that they're going to 5 commissioners as well, but Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Well, our current sort of language is just says it's just one member from the port. So
Yeah.
I think, and I would, given that we're trying to manage our numbers. Given that we go into 5 of those, that would put us, way too high. I mean, even as it is, I think we're trying to manage, keep from getting out of hand already. So just look at the existing language just as one member from the port, so I don't think that would change in my, unless anybody else here thought differently, but trying to balance that level of representation from, obviously from the cities, each city that buys onto our solid waste management plan is represented, the port as well. Then you have the industry, hauling, disposal, hauling and recycling, ag, and then some residents. So
And Delroy.
Yeah, I was just wondering, has there been an issue that's come up with being that in the past, we've just had one member from the commissioners?
not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. And that position, as with the port, tends to rotate every year or two. So everybody on the commission's had a chance to meet with us. And that's been the case with the port as well. They rotate it around.
And the cities as well.
Yeah.
Have it. So I guess one of the questions I have in our discussion is there, of these two, that couple options, of course, you can always propose something different or a variation on these. Is there anything that you would prefer between these two? I mean, as far as 16 versus 15 versus 3 public versus 2. I haven't heard any back and forth on a preference there, so I'm just kind of curious if there's.
Ed.
I think small is good, nimble is good. You get too many hands in the pot, and then that becomes a little cumbersome. Maybe it's just about we need to make a decision, and any of the various commissioners or their designees are welcome to attend, because this is a public meeting, and get some feedback. And I think we can even take questions from the public at large, correct?
Yeah, we have a public input section early up, so there's
exactly.
it's on the agenda.
Yeah, so I think we had a great conversation about this, and we all mean well to make sure that we're equitably representing the county, as it were. And but I do think that we should keep things simple. There's no need to reinvent a wheel that's already rolling.
And Richard.
Yeah, I just kind of seconding Ed's comments here. To my mind, more is better because of diversity, diverse views, adding additional voices in, but too many becomes unmanageable. I get that. The idea of 16 with at-large membership makes a lot of sense to me. I'd always be in favor of more voices is better until you get to a manageability problem, and try and strike that balance. So 16 sounds, like a reasonable first approach.
Any other comments or questions about the 2 different approaches? I think that I agree with Ed in that maintaining our number of 15 is probably smart. If we can separate the 2 at-large members so that we just make certain that they're not representing the same area of the county, I think that makes a lot of sense. If there are no other questions or comments, Jeff, is the plan that we vote on this at our August 2nd meeting?
Yes, actually, so
Okay.
it's already planned to be on the agenda for, wanted you to give us some consideration. You know, give you an opportunity to think about it. But the idea would be to, vote on a recommendation to the commissioners at the next meeting, so.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. And you are free to move into your manager's report.
And actually, I don't have a lot to add. A lot of my updates were actually taken up in the capital facilities project piece, so I've already covered most of that. And I want to mention just briefly, so I know Renee and I had this discussion on this recently, so just wanted to let you know, so our senior program manager, Dean Benning, left us at the end of actually very beginning of June to move, and he's now working for WM, which is former Waste Management, down in the Vancouver area. So we are actively, we're just about ready to recruit somebody here shortly, and we will fill you in more on that here shortly. So anyway, just wanted to let you know about that. Yeah, he's well, unfortunately he left, but I think we're going to be in good hands. So anyway, other than that, I don't have too much else to add today.
Any questions of Jeff? If not, any announcements for the good of the committee? I'm not seeing any hands. I can't believe you're gonna get 15 minutes of your life back
I had a
today.
couple roundtable things just to try
Okay,
to fill in
David.
the gap.
Go ahead, David.
One, this is probably for Amanda, but or I just want to make sure we're still going to have an opportunity to get a second chance to see the Pioneer Recycling facility tour, that folks that couldn't make it the first time. I guess that's really old business.
Yes, I'll get in contact with them.
Okay. And the other thing is just I need to sleep well at night. And I was looking at the minutes from last time, and it was Brady Trucking is going to do the composting for us this going forward. And I look on their website and they don't even talk about composting. And do they really know what they're doing? Somebody tell me that they know what they're doing.
Well, I've actually was out there a few weeks ago. Met with Evan Brady. I think has been there before. Yeah, they're doing well. Actually, when I was there, they had their finished material that was at their first run of finished material. They still had 2 more weeks of curing to go before it'll be out and be marketed. So they're getting up to speed here, doing fine. Yeah, we're their only current direct customer right now. So I mean, I could see why it might not be on their website because they're not taking it from the public per se. No, their facility is up, it's running, seems to be, seems to be going well.
Yeah, I just know we have a history of problems with odors and recycling at the work. So I, don't want to foist that off onto a different county for people that may not know what they're doing. So that's my concern. But thank you for that, Jeff.
And they've gotten a lot of good technical assistance from people with a lot of experience.
Good, that's what they need. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was a good question. Thanks for that, David. And Laura.
I was just going to tag on to that our facilities person at Ecology who has been working with Brady has been very impressed with their thoroughness and their effort and intention that they've been working toward this goal. So I just want to pass that on. That's not for me personally, but Derek Rocket, our facilities guy, has been very complimentary of his experiences working with them, and also Mason County. They've been talking with them as well, and they have been also pretty impressed. So it's sounding good.
All right, I can sleep now. Thank you.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
to
good,
know.
David.
Yeah,
I didn't want you to not be getting good sleep.
yeah. Thanks for that, Laura. Anything else from the group? Try to stay indoors. The air quality is not the best today.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And I believe our next meeting is August 2nd. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yep.
August 2. So we will see you in August. Have a lovely July.
Yeah, I will not be at that meeting. I'll be out of state doing other things. So anyway, I'll
Oh.
be unfortunately missing that.
We will miss you, David.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.